Hi everyone. So today I'm going to talk about risk management in our project. It is one of the most important steps. Project risk management is the art and science of identifying, analyzing, and responding to risks throughout the life of a project and in the best interest of meeting project objectives. Risk management can have a positive impact on selecting projects, determining their scope, and developing realistic schedules and cost estimates. Good project risk management often goes unnoticed, unlike crisis management, which indicates an obvious danger to the success of a project. Project risk management involves understanding potential problems that might occur on the project and how they might impede project success. However, there are also positive risks or opportunities which can result in good outcome for a project. A general direction of a project risk, therefore, is an uncertainty that can have a negative or positive effect on meeting project objectives. It is important to note that risk management is an investment; costs are associated with it. The investment that an organization is willing to make in risk management activities depends on the nature of the project, the experience of the project team, and the constraint imposed on both. In any case, the cost of risk management should not exceed the potential benefit. Several risk experts suggest that organizations and individuals should strive to find a balance between risk and opportunities in all aspects of projects. One is risk appetite, the other is risk tolerance. Risk utility is the amount of satisfaction or pleasure received from a potential payoff. The different type of risk utilities are risk averse, risk neutral, and risk seeking. The six major processes which are involved in risk management are planning risk management, identifying risk, performing quantitative risk analysis, performing quantitative risk analysis, planning risk responses, and controlling risks. All of this will be discussed further in the upcoming slides. First, planning risk management. Planning risk management is the process of deciding how to approach risk management activities and plan for them in a project. A risk management plan document is the procedure for managing risk throughout the project. Project teams should hold several planning meetings early in the project's life cycle to help develop the risk management plan. The project team should review project documents as well as corporate risk management policies, risk categories, lessons learned report from past projects, and template for creating a risk management plan. The topics which are addressed in a risk management plans are methodology, roles and responses, budgets and schedules, risk categories, risk probability and impact, risk, revised stakeholder tolerance, tracking, and risk documentation. Contingency plans are predefined actions. The fallback plans are developed for risks that have high impact on meeting project objectives. Contingency reserves are funds included in the cost baseline that can be used to mitigate cost. Management reserves are funds that are held for unknown risks. Many organizations develop their own risk questionnaires. Broad categories of risk described on this questionnaires might include market risk, financial risk, technological risk, people risk, structure or process risk. Identifying risk is the process of understanding what potential events might hurt or enhance a particular project. It is important to identify potential risk early, but you must also continue to identify risk based on the changing project environment. Also remember that you cannot manage risk if you do not identify them first. By understanding common source of risk and reviewing the project planning document, activity cost and duration estimates, the scope baseline, stakeholder register, project document, procurement document, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process asset, project managers and their team can identify many potential risks. There are several tools and techniques for identifying risk. Project teams often begin this process by reviewing project documentation, recent and historical information related to the organization, and assumptions that might affect the project. The four most common techniques include brainstorming, the Bellevue technique, interviewing, root cause analysis. The main output of risk identification is a list of identified risk and other information needed to begin creating a risk register. A risk register is a document that contains results of various risk management processes. It is often displayed in a table or spreadsheet format. A risk register is a tool for developing potential risk, events, and related information. Risk event refers to specific uncertain events that may occur to the determinant or enhancement of the project. The table provides a sample of the format for risk register that can be used by the project manager. Elements of a risk register include an identification number for each risk event, a rank for each risk event. The rank is usually a number with 1 representing the highest risk, the name of the risk event. Example names include defective server, late completion of testing, reduced consulting cost and good publicity. A description of the risk event. Because the name of a risk event is often abbreviated, it helps to provide a more detailed description. The category under which the risk event falls. The root cause of risk. The root cause of the defective server might be a defective power supply. Trigger for each risk. Triggers are indicators or symptoms of actual risk event. For example, cost overruns on early activities may be symptom of poor cost estimate. Defective product may be a symptom of a low quality supplier. Documenting potential risk symptoms for a project also helps in project team identify more project more potential risk events. Potential response to each risk. A potential response to the defective server might be to include a clause in the supplier's contract to replace the server within a certain time period at a negotiated cost. Performing qualitative risk analysis is an important step. Qualitative risk analysis involves assessing the likelihood and impact of identified risks to determine their magnitude and priority. People often describe a risk probability or a consequence as being high, medium, or moderate, or low. For example, a meteorologist might predict a high probability or likelihood of a severe rain showers on a certain day. If that day happens to be your wedding day and you are planning a large outdoor ceremony, the consequences or impact of severe shower might also be high. A project manager can chart the probability and impact of risk on a probability impact matrix or chart, which lists the relative probability of a risk occurring and the relative impact of the risk occurring. Many project teams would benefit from using this simple technique to help them identify risks that needs attention. To use this approach, project stakeholders list the risks they think might occur on their projects. They then label a risk as having a high, medium, or low probability of occurrence and a high, medium, or low impact if it does occur. The project manager then summarizes the result in the probability impact matrix or chart as shown in the figure. It may be useful to create a separate probability impact matrix or chart for negative risk and positive risk to make sure that both types are adequately addressed. Some project teams also call data on the probability of risk and the negative or positive impact. They could have scope, time, and cost goals. Qualitative risk analysis is normally done quickly, so the project team has to decide which type of report makes sense for its project. Top 10 Risk Tracking is a qualitative risk analysis tool. In addition to identifying risk, it maintains an awareness of risk throughout the life of a project by helping to monitor risk. Using this tool involves establishing a periodic review of the project's most significant risk item with management. Similar review can also occur with the customer. The review begins with a summary of a status of the top 10 sources of risk on the project. The summary includes each item's current ranking, previous ranking, number of times it appeared on the list over a period of time, and the summary of progress made in resolving the risk from since its previous review. The main output of qualitative risk is updating the risk register. The ranking column of the risk register should be filled in along with a numeric value of ranking of high, medium, or low for the probability and impact of the risk event. Performing qualitative risk analysis is often the next step to the quantitative risk analysis. Yet, both processes can be done together or separately. The nature of the project and availability of time and money affect which risk analysis techniques are used. The main techniques for qualitative risk analysis include data gathering, analysis, and modeling techniques, and expert judgment. Data gathering often involves interviewing experts and collecting probability distribution information. A more sophisticated technique for quantitative risk analysis is simulation. which uses a representation or model of a system to analyze its expected behavior or performance. Most simulations are based on some form of Monte Carlo analysis. Monte Carlo analysis simulates a model's outcome many times to provide a statistically distribution of the calculated result. For example, Monte Carlo analysis can determine that a project will finish by a certain date only 10% of the time and determine another date for which the project will finish 50% of the time. In other words, Monte Carlo analysis can predict the probability of finishing by a certain date or the probability that the cost will be equal to or less than a certain value. Sensitive analysis. Many people are familiar by using sensitive analysis to see the effect of changing one or more variable on an outcome. For example, many people perform a sensitive analysis to determine their monthly payments for a loan given different rates or periods of the loan. What will your monthly mortgage payment if you borrow $100,000 for 30 years at 6% rate? What will your payment be if the interest rate is 7%, etc.? We create an Excel file to show quickly the breakpoints for a product based on various inputs: the sales price per unit, the manufacturing cost per unit, and fixed monthly expense. The main output of a quantitative risk analysis are to update to the risk register, such as revised risk ranking or detailed information behind those rankings. The qualitative analysis also provide high-level information about the probability of achieving certain project objectives. After an organization identifies and quantifies risk, it must develop an appropriate response to them. Developing a response to risk involves developing options and defining strategies for reducing negative risk and enhancing positive risk. The four basic response strategies for negative risk are risk avoidance, or eliminating a specific threat, usually by eliminating its causes. Of course, all not risk can be eliminated, but specific risk events can be. Risk acceptance, or accepting the consequences if a risk occurs. Risk transference, or shifting the consequence of a risk and responsibility for its management to a third party. Risk mitigation, or reducing the risk impact event by reducing the probability of its occurrence. The four basic responses for positive risk are risk exploitation, or doing whatever you can to make sure risk happen; risk sharing, or allocating ownership of the risk to another party; risk enhancement, or changing the size of the opportunity by identifying and maximizing key drivers of the positive risk. Risk acceptance also applies to a positive risk when the team does not take any action towards risk. Controlling risk involves executing the risk management process to respond to risk event and ensuring that risk awareness is an ongoing activity performed by the entire project team throughout the risk project. Project risk management does not stop with the initial risk analysis. Identified risk may not be materialized, or their probabilities of occurrence or loss may diminish. Previously identified risk may be determined to have a greater probability of occurrence or higher estimated loss value. Similarly, new risk will be identified as project progress. Newly identified risks need to go through the same process as those identified during initial risk assessment. You can use a variety of software tools to enhance risk management processes. Most organizations use software to create, update, and distribute information in this risk register. The risk register is often a simple Microsoft Word or an Excel file, but it can also be a part of more sophisticated database. Spreadsheets can aid in tracking and quantifying risk, preparing charts and graphs, and performing sensitive analysis. Software can be used to create decision trees and estimate expected monetary value. More sophisticated risk management software, such as Monte Carlo simulation software, can help you develop models and use simulation to analyze, respond to various risks, etc. With this, I would like to conclude my topic, project risk management. Thank you for watching.